If you go down to the woods today, you better prepare at all. Down in the caves the spiders play, and witches will take your soul. If you make it out, you can boast. It's Pebbles playing Panic Coaster.
Hello, I'm Mr. Pibbles, but you can call me Peter, and welcome back to our Challenge Park series here in Planet Coaster 2. That was wrong. This isn't the Challenge Park series. This is our Halloween Park series. Yes, within the last couple of episodes, we have been slowly building up this lovely theme park with a lot more budget, a lot more things going on, and a bit of a spooky theme just for the end of October. And obviously in the last couple of episodes we finished off this, our lovely institution here, that sort of slightly creepy bit with our lovely roller coaster restraint in the back. So it means that today we are moving on to a new part of the park, which is here. And before we get into that, let's just turn on some lights quickly. There we go. So, yes, we are starting today down on this plot of land here, which is the framework for our next area. So without further ado, let's just get straight on with that time-lapse. Yes, hello and welcome to today's ever so spooky time-lapse. And I'd like to welcome you to this brand new area, which is themed all around this slightly spooky forest and grove. Now, it is one of the bigger areas of our park. I think it's sort of rivaling the farm that we built up in episodes 2 and 3, but I can't remember if this is bigger or not. I think this has a bigger footprint and it's got more rides, so that's all really that matters. But yes, so today we are very much going to be focused on getting some rides into this area. And I thought I'd start off with a couple of with just 2 flat rides in this episode, just to sort of get them out the way and establish this land. So, kind of all of these different areas of the park are based on a different sort of style of spooky horror that you might see, is how I'm justifying this. Is so the parts of the park. So you've got the farm, which one might think of as rural horror. You've got the institution, which one might think of as psychological horror. Then you've got this area now, which sort of fits into that, I was going to say cabin in the woods vibe, but I'm going a bit more for Blair Witch Project. Because yes, that's right, we are looking at sort of witches and the slightly supernatural, with this as our first ride. Now, I like the Wild Blue in this game. It is a wonderful ride. The first ride I ever built in this game was a Wild Blue, which is very interesting information, and if you'll allow me for a moment to go off topic and talk about it, it was a wonderful ride built using the Viking pieces in the game. I built it all up, and it was one of those things of you open the game and you go, okay, there's the new capabilities, what am I going to try first? And the first thing I thought of trying was, of course, getting a ride put down and trying to theme it up with some pieces. And so I put down one of these Wild Blues, and then I themed it up in the Viking style with a Viking ship, sort of around, kind of above these bits here. I put some shields and some oars on here, and I called it Flitendi Skip, which means flying ship, and it was genuinely one of the coolest things I could do, and it was the thing that really sort of brought me into this game and made me go, actually, what I can do here is a lot better than what I could do in Planet Coaster 1, which, you know, is evident here by what I'm doing to this right here, Broom Flight. So the concept is you are on a witch's broomstick, and you're flying around. It is as simple as that. And the way that I've done this is actually by attaching the broom and the hat to the wings instead of the back, which allows the different bits, like the hat and like the broomstick, to flip and turn with everything, which is quite cool. And now we're just getting some lanterns on, just to light it up a little bit and make it look quite nice. But you can see that there, and yeah, it does look quite cool. And then the other cool thing you can do is attach scenery pieces to other bits of the ride. Hence here, where I'm basically going up the bit at the back and adding all of this up here to sort of hide the arm and the support, if you will, and kind of tying it into the theme. And what is that theme? It is a massive tree. What else would you expect from an area like this? So putting in these pieces, it's at this point that this all started coming together, and I went, wow, this actually holds some sort of kind of weight behind it as something that I can do, which is quite cool. And obviously putting some twigs around the outside, and then sticking one of these pieces up here just to kind of make it all fit in quite nicely. And just finding the right one, getting it to the right size, sinking it in there. Job is a good one. And then coming in and just placing the pieces down to hide the pendulum at the top. Now I will have to apologise, and I'll apologise now for this episode, the next episode, and all the episodes previously, because I'm aware that this is a very fast-paced series. Sort of everything we're doing is kind of as fast as I can do it, and we are skipping bits and pieces here and there, and that is literally because I do not have the time in these episodes to show you literally everything I'm doing. This is a really fun creative exercise to try and get these 13 episodes of this park kind of completely done and out before the 31st of October. And it is quite fun to kind of get in and sort of build this slightly smaller park, but still substantial under the time constraints. And the only kind of downside to that is that I can't kind of record everything, because it mean I'd be editing many more videos than I already have to. And yeah, it's fun, but there we go. Now coming down here to sort of the end of this pillar here, obviously we're using different pieces now than those bark pieces. As much as I liked the bark pieces, I think these work slightly better for what they are. And then just finishing it off with some bark again, just to kind of bring it all down to the arm, I believe is the technical term for it, which is quite cool. And just coming in and sticking some pieces down underneath here like that, and there we go, a massive tree with this ride underneath. Now you may be asking yourself, where do we go now? The ride is all themed, and that, I tell you, is a very good question. But we decide to move to the outside of the ride and the queue line. Now for the queue lines in this area of the park, I'm using some pirate fences, I believe. We've used some pirate fencing already in our in the pirate area of our challenge park, but we are using them again here just to sort of bring it all in. And it's the thing I like about some of these fences is that they will work anywhere. I think these fences, and I think they work perfectly for what I need them to do. and they remind me of 13 at Alton Towers, which is a ride which again uses this sort of slightly spooky woods vibe. I mean, it is literally in the area of the park called the Dark Forest, so I suppose it doesn't get more spooky forest than that. But yes, kind of these... I think this works perfectly for giving that sort of alone in the woods vibe, and especially once we get rid of the queue line, or at least like we get the queue line in to what for like to the point that we want to get it into. Sorry, I'm it's fun. You know, I've done so many of these episodes, both in this park and in other parks, that you'd think that recording these voiceovers gets easier, and I can promise you it doesn't. You know, it's very much, I sit down, I narrate over what's happening, I narrate over my thought processes, and that's about it. But yeah, I can tell you that the rest of this area is quite fun. We've almost got 2 mini areas within this area, and this is one of them. Sort of, this is the more witchy area, where you've got sort of this witch's flight, and then you've got another ride that we build later on, not in this episode, because, you know, I'd be here for ages if I was doing it in this episode. But no, in another episode we sort that all out, and as I say, this is sort of the witchy swampy area, which I quite like. When I had the idea that I wanted to do something with witches and that in this game, my first thought was it needs to be something slightly swampy. You know, I think Louisiana Bayou, I think that sort of vibe with sort of your willows and the water and stuff like that. And while this isn't perfectly that, I think this is good enough. And you can see me here just playing around with the paths. Now, this is one of the things that I don't necessarily like the most about this, about using the tiger-themed biome. While it fits the idea of this being this kind of spooky, secluded park in, you know, the middle of the mountains or whatever, perfectly, the scenery paints for this aren't great. You know, we've either got grass, dead grass, other dead grass, pebbles, gravel, leaves, or rock. There is no just sort of sand or mud, which is annoying. You know, I would have liked to have a muddy path to come around here, and that will become apparent moving forward, because we actually do something with a muddy path later on, which is fun. But yes, coming into here, you know, you can't create invisible bits and pieces down the bottom. You can't create invisible bases for rides. I mean, you can technically, but you can't do it using the invisible path. So instead what we do is we put down this gravel in a brown, and that gives me the idea of, oh, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to gravel the entire path. Because, you know, just putting the gravel down, it looks a lot more like mud than the actual, you know... I didn't use mud, I used shrubs, but that was the closest equivalent. And I think that this just works so much better. Now, skipping onwards in the footage to the next ride that we work on. This is sort of taking us to the other side of this area, where we have this ride here, a collider, I believe, and that will ties in with the whole idea of this area, which is this pit. And you can see this pit here, and we've got some really fun ideas for this, because as you will see now, we are playing around with Spider's Web. And yes, the idea behind this part of the area is that it's themed around spiders and sort of this spider's lair or whatever. And I think it just works quite well with how, like, with what we end up with for this whole spiders themed part. You know, we continue that on within the next episode, and I think just how it ends up looking is just really good, really nice. You know, I really like it. And yeah. But coming in and placing down these bits of webbing to create this bigger, massive spider's web that sort of sits in this pit, it's quite cool. If I toot my own horn, I think I did a rather good job on this. And it sort of has that vibe of, these spiders have built this massive web, and it's this lair that you end up going into. But that's spoilers for the next episode, so I won't talk about that too much at length. But yes, you can see me here coming in and putting down more of these web strands, which is quite fun, and then just absolutely taking them in and taking it all the way out to the edge. And there we go. So, it looks quite good there as it is. Of course, it doesn't touch the edge yet. It will touch the edge, I can assure you that. And you will notice these rotational settings up at the top that I've got it on loop and it's on default. So, I haven't noticed that yet. But you all at home will hopefully notice that and go, well, don't yell at me in the comments about it, because we notice it in a bit, and it might be genuinely one of the most funny parts of this episode. You can see me there toying about with kind of how big the holes are because of what we get up to in the next episode, but that is stuff for the next episode. And just coming in, why did I choose a collider for this ride in this area? Well, it all has to do with the shape of it, because I thought that the ride itself looks a lot like a spider's web. And so I thought, actually, what else do you put in the area about spiders than, a ride that looks like a spider's web? But coming in here and just building a little bit of path for the queue line. We do have a bit of a play around with this later on, but that is something, the queue path stays the same. It is a fundamental mistake that I make that means that I need to go back and replace all of this later, but that's for me to know and for you to find out later. But yes, coming in and trying to put a white down there, it just doesn't look right. So instead, we go for the same brown gravel and kind of bring it all the way around so we can get rid of that. So we can get rid of the fencing around that and add our custom piratey stockade fence, which is quite fun. So obviously you can see me here putting it all in, and it is just a matter of making these circles of just, selecting them, adding them to a building, copying them both, and just rotating them, and that is literally that is all there is to it. I wish it was more robust than that, but it's simple for what it is. All you need to do is place down a couple of things, and then within about 3 minutes you've got a full circle that you can stick around something like this, and then you've got what you need in a queue line, in a fence. But there we go. And obviously just moving that a little bit to get it into place there. I really like this sort of small section of this area because it's so fun to kind of have the idea of this giant spider's cave that, you'll head into, you'll have a bit of a play around in, and it is quite cool. And just putting down these bits of pathing here to get rid of ultimately what is the supports for the ride. And as much as I like supports on things, just not this ride, because we are going to have bits underneath this and you don't want it to look too bad. Now coming in here and placing down some spider's webs as theming, it's very much a process of going, okay, what would actually fit in this? And before we put any of those down, obviously we have to come in and we have to theme up the ride itself with some of these spiders, and then also with some of these spiders, and it just adds a little bit to everything. And then coming in here, we're adding these webs. I don't know what else I can say about them. They're webs, they're going on. It's quite fun. They are here almost acting as a canopy over the entrance to the ride and the way that you'd get up onto it, but it is a little bit messy, but I think we can get away with that because this isn't supposed to be clean and kind of the aesthetic here isn't supposed to be clinically clean. That was the last area. This is supposed to be a lot more kind of get stuck in, kind of get all these things down and kind of make it look natural. I think the important phrase here is that it needs to look like it's been made by this spider, essentially. Which spider? Well, that's that is a spoiler for an upcoming episode. So I can't tell you too much about that. I probably should have. I probably should tell you before we get into the next episode that there will be an arachnophobia warning for the next episode, as we are playing around with spiders quite a bit, which is fun. But yeah, it is just a process of getting these webs down and making them all kind of fit around. And you can notice me there, right? So this is the one bit I was speaking about of coming in and doing stuff with the queue line. So I will tell you now why we are going to move the entrance and exit in a bit and get rid of this queue line entirely. And that is because the ride is the wrong way round. You may be thinking to yourself, what do I mean the ride's the wrong way round? There's no right way for it to be round. And that would be right. That would be true. Except if, if when the ride was in motion, it didn't tip up to face the forest instead of the people. Because that was one of the things I wanted, is that as you're walking down this path sort of towards this area from the other sort of more witchy area, I wanted this to feel very webby, and then I wanted one of the main things to be that you can look up and you can see this massive ride, and that is ultimately one of the things that I really wanted to be kind of key at the centre of this whole area, really, is that you need to be able to see the ride, which is quite fun. But there we go. And I know today has been a lot of kind of getting these fences down and making everything look nice. But that is half of the game. We could play it in a way where we place down a couple of rides and we leave it there, and everything looks a little bit messy, but it's fine because people are enjoying it. And that is very true. We could very well do that. But I don't want to do that. And that feels very sort of, I don't want to say mean to say, but it feels very mean to say in that I don't want to do that. And I derive a lot more joy in this game from kind of getting in and fully doing the themes for the areas and playing around with everything as much as kind of I do. Now, coming in and putting some curves in there, you can see that I've put these fences the wrong way around, which is incredibly, incredibly annoying. But, it is what it is. And I believe we are slowly coming up on the end of the time lapse. So, if you have enjoyed this, then please feel free to see me in real time. And there's the spinning web that I mentioned earlier. Obviously, I do turn it off, but there we go. Welcome to real time in a sec. I'm taking longer to get there than I expected. This happens. Don't worry. I won't leave you on your own quite yet. Again, it's one of the joys of recording these time-lapse footage is I don't quite know when it's going to end. Okay, so we've come to the end of this episode, and welcome back to Real Time. So, what we've done today is We have built 2 flat rides in this new area of the park. Of course, we've got this, the Broom Flight, which looks quite good. I really like the way that it's come out and the way that the base plate looks. And I especially like the look of the vehicle on there. Of course, we just need a few things around here to make it really pop. And over here we have Webbed, our other ride in this area. And yeah. Now, if you have enjoyed this episode, then please give me a like, give me a comment, possibly even a follow if I am lucky enough. And I will see you in the next episode. Ta-ta! Roll that outro.